Hey guys, how's it going here? It's Michael from GuitarGate again, and I thought I'd jump back on here to do a follow-up on my previous video about how I learn song parts for a cover band. The other main piece is the arrangement. And when people say arrangement, maybe it's a little confusing what they're talking about, but it literally means when you're doing those specific pieces, and depending on how many pieces are in your band, who's doing what, and in what order, and whether you're doing them in a low part, middle part, high part. So I'm going to basically show you how I go through the tune. I'm going to put a link in this video to go to the previous video so you can see where I figure out what all the different parts are. But I'm going to basically show how I write down the arrangement of the song as I hear it. Now, I'm going to do this same song as I did from the previous lesson, this Jason Derulo Want to Want Me, just because it's fresh and I just did it. And, we got to have this song down for the band. And I picked a live example. And that's always best when you're learning a song, like I talked about, to start with a studio, do at least 2 lives, and try to find someone covering it. Once you do that and you go through and kind of like get the fat, as I call it, then when you're working out your arrangement, you basically find the version that you think makes the most sense for your band, as close as you can with the amount of pieces you have, with playing to the strengths and weaknesses of your band. Now, this version, this Guitar Center Sessions, I've listened to it a few times, but I haven't taken down any notation. I'm going to do that live for you here. But it does have a crazy bridge and a crazy gospel intro, which for our band doesn't make sense because we try to keep our songs a little bit on the shorter side. There's just so many crazy hits in there to learn, which makes it fantastic. But my point is that you don't always need to arrange a song exactly how the artist does it live. You want to do it for what makes sense for you. So let's jump right in. So this is a long gospel intro, gospel style intro, I should say. And these are incredible musicians. Big, right? Big. Alright, so that was their intro that they did. Now, one thing I think people don't talk about enough is the song that comes before and the song that comes after a song in any specific set. So when I hear that intro, and we're trying to decide whether or not that's something we're going to do in our band, I try to think of where in our set this song would fit. And for me in our band, since we do a lot of dance stuff, but we don't stay in this one specific genre, I think it doesn't make sense for us to have a 30, 40-second big drawn-out gospel-style intro because we don't want the people to leave the dance floor. We want the beat to drop on the last song within 2 to 3 seconds, come back in hard with the groove, right? So that's what I'm going to write down. I'm going to write down, start with the groove. So the first time through, it starts right with vocals. So start with groove and vocals. And now the groove is just the bass and the drums. And maybe you're adding that with the guitar, with one guitar, but you're keeping it pretty stripped down. It's an introduction to the theme of the tune. This is the second time through. Same thing. We're starting at like a 5.5, 6, right? So 2 times through. Right away, you hear the hi-hats pick up on the drums, the bass opens up a little bit, and if you have a second guitar and you're waiting for that higher part that, you know, the orchestra hits, maybe it makes sense to add maybe a doubled or maybe a higher part. Or there might be a little lick in the back that, but you still, it is absolutely groove centered, but you just want to elevate it to maybe like a 6.5. Here the hi-hats are in there. So 2 times, so we're building up 2 times. Then you have a break with the keyboard thing. Now, if you don't have a keyboard or you don't want to cover that either vocally or guitar, don't do it, because it leaves that space for the people on the dance floor, for the, you know, the lights to kind of dip, and it leaves that space when it comes in huge with the orchestra hits. Alright, so he's doing 2 choruses, right? The one thing I hear in here is those big orchestra hits are big, and the groove is solid behind it, and in the space you're hearing a lot of drum fills. So that tells me to resist the temptation to scratch all the way through with the, you know. It tells me to leave that space for the drums to hit that. And give the drums space. Now the one thing I'm hearing, because that sound is so big, and in our band we just have 2 guitar players, and the one other guitar player is just doing the matching with the bass, it tells me to make the hits I'm doing sound as big as possible. So instead of doing just a power chord, and instead of which will sound big, but not as big as if I played more notes, and instead of playing the major chords and the minor chords that go with, you know, E major, C sharp minor, etc., I'm doing big, kind of sus, you know, kind of extended chords, you know, sus chords, where I'm playing all 6 strings. So for my E, I'm getting this B in the bass. I'm also getting this F sharp, which is a 9, so it's just suspended, and then the B on top. So I'm getting a big 6-note chord, but I'm not playing any thirds in there, so I don't get any bleed, right? Because I'm trying to sound as big as possible. And I do that. I'm going to do that with each one, because if I play that same shape and move it, I get a 6-string chord that sounds big without any note bleed for each of those hits, and it sounds as big as possible, and I never get a note that isn't in the key. So this is the second chorus. Leaving lots of rooms for the drums in there. Alright, so 2 choruses, leaving lots of rooms for the drums, and then you have one time through, I'm assuming, where you hit that keyboard lick, that. Alright, so you got the 2 times where it does that keyboard lick. The hits are still going in the background. So if you're 2 guitar players, and one of you is taking that thing because you're not covering it with vocals or something else, you got to make a decision. Do you stick with the groove, or do you let the other guitar player, you know, switch to those orchestra hits? You know, and this is a decision that you figure out in the room with your band. So, you know, I can't tell you what is the right or wrong way, but I can tell you that you should probably experiment with both, and whichever one loses the mojo less live is the one that you should go with. It is my gut feeling to switch to the orchestra hits if your bass player is big enough and loud enough to maintain that groove, because there's a lot going on. There's also lots of drum fills, etc. And there was that hit. there was that hit going back in. So I'm writing chorus 2 times. I got that keyboard lick, that vocal lick. That happens twice with the hit still in the background. Now, then you got a big hit and there's a break. And then it goes back to the verse. And now this verse, it drops back down, but I'm still hearing that open bass, the drummer's still playing the hi-hats. It is not the same as the intro. So the intro, when we started at like a 5.5 or so, we're back up to that 6.5, so if you're playing that second guitar part, you can, play a higher part or do some type of little funky thing. But you're not going back to the total stripped down version, which is how you started the song. That's what I'm hearing. Two of them. So you got that break again. And if you notice, the drums kind of match that vocal line where he's going down, and so it brings it back up. Again, that's something you got to figure out with your band if you're going to do that, or whether you're just going to leave space and come in huge with the orchestra. You're hearing bass fills in here, you're hearing tom fills, and you're hearing the guitar doing a little funky top part. So this is an elevated chorus. The band is opening up, right? So the first chorus and the second chorus are different in the fact that it's a little more opened up. It's a little more loose. You're pushing a little bit harder. Important to note that you're taking people on a journey. So this is how you want to think about arrangements. Second time, opening up even more. You never lose that groove, but you see the drummer is taking more and more chances, adding more and more on the hi-hat, more tom stuff. The guitar player is staying with that funky thing, but the hits never leave. Keyboard lick. Alright, so now this was the bridge I was talking about. This is a very long, extended bridge. But just know that for this section of the bridge, it is not in the recorded version. We, as our band, because again, we're not trying to have this law, because we're thinking about what song we're going to play in one more minute, because that's all that's left in the song. We're not going to drag this out, because we're going to probably play something, that's going to follow this on the journey of the set list. And we'll talk about that in a different video series. So I'm going to scratch that. So when we're going to arrangement, we're going to use their live arrangement with the exception of the intro and bridge, where we're going to follow the studio recording. So we're going to get the main gist of it, and we're going to get the hits coming out of it, but we're going to skip the whole middle part. So we'll get this. And just so you know, you're hearing, the bass is wandering around a lot. The drums are pretty much staying on the hi-hat and kick. It's pretty laid back, and the guitar is doing that upper funky thing. So you're gonna have one guitar doing that upper funky thing, and one just going the chords. But so see where it does this? That's pretty awesome. But what we're going to do is go back, and on that hit right there, just like on the recorded version, it goes back into the chorus. We're going to skip this next 40 seconds or so. Into the third chorus. And now this chorus is going to be the biggest, loudest, most open chorus you have done yet, right? One chorus, and then it goes right into the keyboard lick, which is going to take us out, I imagine. Sounds like they're going to do it 4 times. And then you end with those 2 hits. And that is how you arrange a song for a band. Keep in mind that your band is not the artist's band. You know, you've listened to the studio recording, you have listened to their live recordings, you've listened to other bands cover it. You take all that information, you take the parts, and you get together with your band and you figure out what arrangement makes most sense to, 1, the level of musicianship and capability of your band, but also 2, what song are you playing before it and what song are you playing after it? So how do you get into the song? How do you get out of the song? And if it makes sense to remove a part or borrow a part. So for this song in particular, we scrap the intro and we scrap the extended gospel bridge. Each one of those is about 30 seconds, and so we're taking about a minute off the tune. So we're doing it how they do it live, but the arrangement is the arrangement of the original studio recording. And just to give you a little summary, the song starts with just the groove and vocals 2 times. Again, you're about a 5.5, you're grooving hard. Then it builds up, right, twice. That's for the verse, and then there's a hard break. When it comes back into the chorus, it does it 2 times, and then the keyboard lick is 2 more times with the hits of the band. Then, when it comes back in to the verse, you've kind of picked it up, right? It's not that initial introduction. It has been picked up, so you're coming back in with it at that 6.5 level, right? There's another break afterwards. Then there's a chorus. The chorus has picked up at this point. More activity on the hi-hats and drum fills. You're trying to leave space for it with the guitar. Try not to scrape your whole way through it. You have that keyboard lick. You have the bridge. Comes out with the chorus 1 time. The keyboard part ends 4 times, and you have 2 hits on the end. In the bridge, again, doing it like the studio recording. It is going to be just 1 time through the bridge. You're going to get the hits. One person's doing the chords, one person's doing the funk part, and that's what makes sense for arranging for a 5-piece band with 2 guitar players, drums, bass, and vocals. So no keys. And that is a great way to begin thinking about arranging a song for your band. Just don't forget, a song comes before and a song comes after. That is just as important as what you do inside the song. And if you like this series, you like this approach, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more of these or on a specific song, please drop a hashtag #LearnTheSong in the comments, and I'll see you in the next lesson.